Welcome back. We spent a lot of time looking at markets and competition on the outside, but a company's real true power, so often it comes from within. So today, we're diving deep into internal analysis. We're going to uncover the strengths, the weaknesses, and those secret advantages that really define success. Let's get right into it. Okay, so here's what we've got on top for today. First, we'll get a handle on the fundamentals. What even is internal analysis? Then we'll get practical and look at the key tools you're going to use. After that, we'll totally switch gears and see how all this stuff shows up in your exams. I'll even share a strategic study plan to help you focus, and we'll wrap it all up with a quick recap to make sure it all sticks. I mean, think about it for a second. The companies you really admire, is their success just a fluke, a lucky break, or is there something deeper going on? Something built into their structure, their culture, their skills that just sets them apart? Well, the answer is that greatness is built, not stumbled upon. In internal analysis, that's the set of tools we use to understand the blueprint. So let's start by building our foundation. Before we can jump into analyzing complicated business cases, we all need to be speaking the same language. This first part is all about getting a solid grip on the core vocabulary of internal analysis. Here we go, our first key definition. You're definitely going to want to write this down. So internal analysis is basically the process of looking inwards to answer two really simple but incredibly powerful questions. What are we truly good at? And where are we falling short? You can think of it like a health checkup for a company, but it only focuses on the stuff it can actually control. Now, these two concepts might seem simple, but they are so powerful. A strength isn't just something a company is kind of okay at. It has to be a genuine edge over your rivals, like a sprinter's raw speed. A weakness, on the other hand, is a handicap. It's that nagging injury holding the same sprinter back. One pushes you forward, the other pulls you back. It's that simple. Okay, listen up, because this is a term you absolutely positively must know for your exams. A core competency is a whole level above a simple strength. It's a skill or an activity that is totally central to what the company is and how it competes. It's not just something they do well, it's something they do exceedingly well, and often it's knowledge-based. It lives in the skills of its people. Think of a tech company that can seamlessly blend different technologies into one amazing product. That is a core competency. All right, now that we've got the basic vocabulary down, let's open up the strategist's toolkit. This is where we learn about the specific frameworks and models you'll actually use to perform an internal analysis. These are the lenses you're going to use to examine any company. Now, this slide shows the logical flow of a proper analysis, and it's not random at all. You start with the big picture, the company's mission. Then, you do a broad sweep of its strengths and weaknesses. From there, you zoom in on the really special stuff, the unique resources and core competencies. And finally, all of that leads you to pinpoint the company's strategic advantage. See how each step just builds on the last one? So one of the most famous tools in this toolkit is Michael Porter's value chain. The whole idea is to break a company down into all of its individual activities to see exactly where it creates value. Porter split these activities into two main groups. You've got primary activities, that's everything hands-on with the product, making it, shipping it, selling it. And then you have support activities, which is everything happening in the background to make all that primary stuff possible. Let's take a closer look at those primary activities. Let's imagine a smartphone company. Inbound logistics, that's receiving all the components. Operations is putting the phone together. Outbound logistics is shipping the finished phones to stores. Marketing and sales is, creating the ads and selling them. And service is all the support you get after you buy it. Companies build huge advantages here. I mean, just think of Amazon's mastery of outbound logistics versus Apple's absolute dominance in marketing. And what's holding all of that up? Well, that's where the support activities come in. Procurement is the team that buys the parts, technology development is the R&D folks designing the future, human resource management, they're the ones hiring and training all the talent, and firm infrastructure is basically everything else. Accounting, legal, management, the stuff that keeps the entire company running. They are the essential backbone for sure. So you're looking at all these activities, but how do you know if you're any good at them? That's where comparative analysis comes in. You can look back at your own history, or you can compare your performance against industry norms. But a really powerful tool is benchmarking, where you measure yourself against the best in class. Think of a little local cafe studying how Starbucks runs its operations, even if they're in a totally different league. And finally, robustness analysis asks a really critical question. How hard is it for our competitors to copy the thing that makes us special? Okay, that's a lot of theory. It's solid, it's useful, but let's get to the point that really matters. How does this actually help you pass your exams? So now we're going to apply this knowledge. This is how these concepts show up when it really counts. This is such a key point for your notes, so please make sure you get this down. The examiners, they don't just want you to spit back definitions. They want to see that you can take a model, like the value chain, and actually use it to analyze the situation. Understanding the why and the how, that's what gets you the big marks. So let's look at a real example from a past paper. This one's from December 2018. It's a pretty straightforward question. Write a short note on core competencies. Seems simple, right? But it's a fantastic test of whether you really understand the concept. All right, it's your turn. I want you to hit pause on this explainer right now. Seriously, grab a piece of paper and based on what we've just talked about, jot down 3 or 4 key points that you would absolutely include in your answer. Don't worry about writing perfect sentences. Just get the core ideas down. Go on. I'll wait for you. Okay, welcome back. Let's break down how to structure a top-scoring answer. First, you start with a sharp, clear definition. It's something done exceedingly well. Next, you have to link it directly to strategy, explaining why it's so central to being competitive. Then, add a bit more depth by mentioning that it's often knowledge-based. And finally, and this is so important, give a few concrete examples. The examiners are looking for that perfect mix of definition, strategic context, and real-world application. So now that you know what to learn and how it gets tested, the last piece of the puzzle is figuring out where to focus your study time. Let's build a smart, strategic study plan based on what we know from past exams. This chart right here, this tells you exactly where to focus your energy. Looking at past papers, it's clear that topics like core competencies and unique resources show up a lot. The value chain is also a regular guest. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore everything else, but it gives you a massive clue about where you'll get the highest return on your study time. So with that in mind, here are your top tips. You'll want to make a note of this. First, have absolutely rock-solid definitions for core competencies and unique resources. Second, you should be able to list the primary and support activities of the value chain right from memory. Third, and this is maybe the most important, find some case studies and practice questions to apply these concepts. And for your flashcards, you need to memorize the 4 characteristics of unique resources. They must be valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and non-substitutable. Whew, okay. We have covered a huge amount of ground today. So let's do a final quick-fire recap just to make sure all of these key ideas are locked firmly in place before we wrap up. Here are the 5 big takeaways. 1. Internal analysis is all about spotting strengths and weaknesses. 2. Core competencies are the very heart of a company's competitive edge. 3. The value chain helps us dissect a firm into its specific value-creating parts. 4. Comparative analysis gives us a yardstick to measure how we're doing. And 5, the most important one of all, exam success comes from applying these tools, not just memorizing them. Okay, one last chance to test yourself, and no looking at your notes. First, in your own words, what makes a resource unique? And second, can you list the 5 primary activities of the value chain just off the top of your head? If you can answer those 2 confidently, you are in fantastic shape. So let's end with a little thought to take with you. Now that you have this toolkit, you can look at any company out there with a completely new perspective. So my question for you is this: which real-world company do you think has the most powerful core competencies, and what are they? Really think about it. Apply what you've learned today. That's the absolute best way to make this knowledge your own. Thank you so much for diving into this with me, and I will see you in the next explainer.